Hi, I wanted to hop on today because I just had a wonderful session with my clients, and there were so many takeaways that I wanted to share with you all, my dear followers. And really, the topic that I wanted to cover in these 10 minutes is how AI is costing you leadership roles. It truly is. And what I mean by this is the way that you're articulating yourself as a leader. It is just so watered down because of ChatGPT. I was just talking to a client on the call, and one of the things that I do with my clients is I get them to practice their communication, to mock their interviews. We craft stories that are engaging in order to make the work that you do, the implicit work that you do, explicit. And one of the patterns that I keep seeing over and over and over again is overly verbose communication. What I mean by this is, if a recruiter or a hiring manager doesn't know you and meets you for the first time, they have no context of what you've done. They can't read your mind. Some of you have a temptation of just sharing everything, and it can feel overwhelming. But what I've seen specifically with the emergence of AI is this over reliance. Over reliance. It's almost like we don't trust ourselves anymore. We have to check everything with ChatGPT. And it's like your voice and your conviction is missing because of that. Now, the biggest problems with ChatGPT that I see, and I can really spot, someone's interview answer or someone's communication and know that it's ChatGPT. The number one thing is how unstructured the communication is and how lengthy it is. That's like the first tell. And so if you are someone who tends to be verbose and has trouble being concise, that is more of a reason for you to not rely on ChatGPT as a tool. You know, I'm the perfect example here because I do these pop up LinkedIn lives and I have nothing prepared. I don't have notes, and I can just speak off the cuff. And I think a lot of people have trouble with that these days. They can't improvise, they can't speak off the cuff because they're not practicing their communication muscle. When you're overly relying on ChatGPT, your brain gets lazier, your communication muscle gets weakened. And so when you show up to interviews, when you're networking, when you're sharing your experience, you feel like you're out of practice. So that's the thing that I've been observing. And that's the dangerous side of ChatGPT. So when I was coaching my client today, I asked her if she was a pen and paper person. And she said, yes, I am. I'm a pen and paper person. Awesome. So why not just sit down and write your thoughts down on paper? Versus, a lot of people, what they do is they hit the microphone button on their phone and they just talk to ChatGPT all the time without even thinking about the words that come out of their mouth. And then ChatGPT does this whole thing and it just overcomplicates what you say and then spits it, back to you. And then you end up memorizing it and taking that to your interviews. It's really awful. It really is. And, there will be moments where you can get away with it if you're writing an email and sending it out. But there will be many moments where you're having a real conversation with someone and you're going to start feeling like you're having dementia because you can no longer find the words to express what you're saying. So that's a big thing. Now, one of the things that I work on with my clients is structuring their stories. When you are an executive, right? Really, the way I think of it, your experiences are stories, not tasks. They're stories. Why do I say stories? The story has a structure, and it's a very purposeful structure to communicate any type of message. One of the frameworks that I use is SOAR, situation, obstacle, action, result. Many of you are familiar with, maybe some of you know more about the STAR framework. But essentially, in any type of story, there is some type of conflict. There is some type of goal in the story where a guide, is trying to achieve a goal. And as a leader, you are a guide in an organization who is assigned to an initiative in order to drive some value. And so essentially, what a story structure does is it kind of forces you to describe what you've done in a very value and impact driven way. So let me share with you an example here of what I went through with my clients today. Let me show you. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Let us make sure the technology works. Okay, so the analogy that I give people, it's almost like, think of it as, business as usual. You're in the office, and all of us, when we are, business as usual, the reason we are employed and the reason we take these jobs is because we are solving some kind of problem, right? And so when you tell a story to a hiring manager or in a networking conversation, you really want to make your story revolving around a problem that you are solving. Now, the mistake that I see with a lot of people is they try to talk about too many problems that they were trying to solve, and then it becomes very confusing. The other mistake that I see, especially leaders and executives make, is that you're not talking about the business goal that you were achieving through your mandate in the story. So I had a client who was asking me a question today, and he said, well, I was brought in because I was trying to, solve teams working in silos problem. And I said, no, that's not why you were brought in as an executive. Why do you think they wanted you to ensure that the teams were not working in silos? And I kept asking him why, until he said to me, because they have a financial issue, because they're trying to increase their revenue. And so here's the thing. When we're not starting our communication and our stories through a goal, oriented approach, and when you don't tie it to the business problem, the ultimate business problem that you're trying to solve, it waters down the initiatives and your involvement. Because when you say something like, I was brought in to reduce silos, you sound like an individual contributor. You're not sounding like a leader, because leaders impact the entire organization. You are part of driving the business goals, and you need to always start with your goal. So that's what a situation is about. Now, the other mistake that I see people make when they talk about, what they've done at an organization and when they tell their stories, is they talk about their involvement as if they're the only person in the organization. You focus on what you did versus who you were working with as well. Because here's the thing. When a recruiter looks at your resume, or when a recruiter has a conversation with you, if they don't hear that you were partnering with a VP or partnering with a C-level, and you're just talking about yourself as if you were the only person in the project, how are they going to know that you're a leader and you're capable of leading teams, right? How are they going to know that you're able to work cross-functionally? And how do they know that the level that you were reporting into is higher up? You can't simply rely on your title to help someone understand the value that you brought to the table. And in fact, if you are trying to make a pivot and if you're trying to move up, that's even more important for you to actually emphasize in your experience stories. Okay. The second mistake, when we talk about, okay, so, I was a VP of marketing, and Let us say my mandate was to increase, the company's revenue by increasing awareness, right? And by driving growth or being part of growth initiatives. Now we want to talk about the obstacle. What was the blocker in your way? Because you don't want to just talk about what you did without talking about the challenges that you faced. Otherwise, it just sounds too easy. Now, the mistake that I see people make when they talk about what's in their way is they just start like describing every little, challenge that was in their way. And that's what makes your story verbose. That makes it very difficult to digest. And instead, what you want to do is you want to focus on one challenge at a time, one thing that was getting in your way at a time to contain the story so that your actions line up with that. I want you to almost think of it like if you play video games and you have Super Mario. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Super Mario. Like, let me know in the chat. um, you have a choice. Choose your adventure. You may go into this pipe or you may go into that pipe. And depending on which pipe you go through, you end up somewhere else. And so that's the same thing with your stories. But when you're trying to pack your story with too much information and too many challenges, it's like there isn't a central idea in the story. And that makes the recruiter and hiring manager have a hard time following your story and where you're taking them with you on this adventure. So, those are a few tricks that I share with my clients. And I am actually launching an amazing workshop next week. This is something that I have never done before, where I'm literally inviting you to an actual client workshop. I usually don't have these workshops, public facing. They're usually exclusive to my basically clients who are enrolled in my career transformation program, which is more than 3 months. But for a limited time, what I'm doing is giving you almost like a day pass to experience what it's like working with me for a day. And in addition to that, you are actually going to come out of this workshop with something very tangible, which is your experience story. Now, tell me, have you ever been in a situation where you could not translate your experience, where you had difficulty putting words to what you've done? Because you've done so much in your career. I mean, I can't even remember what I had for lunch yesterday, let alone stuff that I did, more than 10 years ago or even a year ago. And so my whole basically technique is designed for people who have writer's block, who have what we call career amnesia and don't remember, all of the wonderful experiences that they've done. And the best way to solve this is to be in a room with other peers who listen to your story, poke holes in it, and ask you questions. It's almost like, have you ever seen, then we'll all be in a flood of tears. Yes. So, have you ever seen movie writers and the way they come up with ideas in a movie? They don't come up with it in isolation. They collaborate together and ask each other questions in order to design the plot. And if you think about, your career, it's full of, thick plots and Godzillas. And isn't it more fun to actually do it through a guided approach? In addition to that, you get to ask me questions. I will give you feedback, and you come out of this basically workshop with one experience story that you can use right away with hiring managers through networking conversations, in interviews, and you can use it over and over and over again. So let me actually show you guys something here. if I may. And I'm just going to see if I can share my screen again. I want to show you guys what my workshop is going to look like. So the workshop is literally in 5 days and 22 hours, so less than 6 days. And one of the things I tell people, the reason you're not landing the role that you really, really love is not because you're underqualified, it's because you're undervalued. And being undervalued comes from being misunderstood. And so it is a communication problem. It's because you're not communicating your value clearly. That's a big part of it. Obviously, the other part is sometimes it's the wrong culture, it's the wrong fit. And so in my program, what I work on with folks is helping them get crystal clear on what the right role is for them. But the other component is working on translating their existing experience to the role that they want. So in this workshop, the component that we're going to work on is one of the many components of my program. And it is the communication aspect and teaching you how to tell your story, which really is part of your brand, how you want to be perceived as a leader and as a professional. So I understand that the big reason that as a leader, you have a hard time, being in a role that's fulfilling and having trouble communicating is because you've led across many organizations. You've built many high performing teams. You've delivered results that others couldn't. And the thing is, most leaders with more than 10 years of experience have not had a linear career. It's layered, it's complex, it's multidimensional, and it's very, very difficult for you to really take all of that rich experience and be able to explain it in 5 minutes or 2 minutes. And so what this workshop does, it's going to be a 90-minute live working session. It's not going to be a webinar. I've been doing so many webinars for the past 6 years, and based on my experience, what I've noticed is people come to the webinars, they watch them, and they don't implement anything, which is kind of sad. And so my idea is I want to do a workshop so that you can actually have the opportunity to implement and not just learn. You are going to learn how to translate your complex experience into clear, credible positioning. You're going to articulate your impact so senior decision makers get it. And we're going to close the gap between how capable you are and how you're being evaluated. So logistics wise, this is going to take place on Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. The time is 7 p.m. Eastern. The investment is going to be $70. You are going to get my entire framework on how to communicate your value effectively. And you're also going to get the recording so that you can watch it over and over and over and over again. And on top of that, there are so many bonuses. You are going to get my Story Architect GPT, which is so cool, by the way. I will show you what it looks like. This is my Story Architect GPT. You can see it here. Some of you have tried it out and you really loved it. It literally takes a job posting, it analyzes the job posting, it gives you the criteria that you need to meet in order to ace your interview from the job posting. And then it helps you tailor your answers to the job posting and put it into the story format. So it's something that I have spent an entire year honestly building, and 6 years of my experience and coaching more than 1,000 clients, and the mistakes that they've made are inside that GPT. So you're getting my IP basically. The other bonus is that you are going to get an experience story scorecard, which is going to help you self-assess if your story clearly articulates your value, if it's concise, if it's overly, if it's too vague, if it is not meeting the requirements, right? There are so many things that need to be included in order to ensure that the story is engaging, concise, and um, really positions you as the obvious choice for the role. The other bonus that I'm also going to share is the before and after of an interview answer. That way, it can help you architect your stories very quickly, because I know that we all learn better from examples, right? Also, you are going to get a private one-on-one with me in order to talk about your career and map your next steps with my custom insights on your direction, as well as come up with an exit plan for you. If you're not happy with the role, we can talk about your options as well. So it's honestly incredible value. I've never offered this before. And we have limited time. We literally have less than 6 days for you to actually join us. So if you want basically to attend, all you need to do is comment workshop, or you can send me a DM in order to join. And I'm going to just drop the link here. Honestly, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but I'm just going to post it here in case it shows up. It's probably just going to show up on YouTube. But I think the best way to get the link is to just DM me or comment workshop. And I hope that listening to this, you realize that there is hope. I understand that some of you feel like the market is bad, or you feel like you don't have any options, but the reality is you do. And I will tell you why. I literally have a client right now who has 5 interviews in 1 week. 5 interviews. She came to me before with 0. Okay. So when you fix your positioning and when you fix your communication, everything changes. Your confidence changes. People get it very quickly. The reason you get these responses, we're going to go with another candidate, or, oh, you're great, but we're not going to go with you. It's because hiring managers and recruiters simply don't see your value. And I get all this noise about, well, it's because I don't know anyone and I'm not, I don't have a network. And okay, so you don't have a network. What are you going to do about it? You're just going to give up? What are your options? There isn't a magical list for you to find that network. You're not going to build a network overnight. And arguably, if you think about all of the best networkers, there isn't one that isn't great at communicating their value. The reason they're able to build relationships, great networkers, the reason they're able to build relationships is because they're great communicators. So, working on your communication and storytelling is an essential skill for you to build your network and for you to get another role. So, that's all I'm going to leave you with. Of course, DM me if you have any questions, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.